Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, your host for the House of Hardcore podcast, Tommy Dreamer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the House of Hardcore podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Dreamer, and this week it's a throwback for me, but I had to go with someone who is a heartthrob, Antonio Thomas. How are you today?
I'm very good, Tommy. Thank you.
You look fabulous. You're still a heartthrob.
I am. I got when your tag team partner had a 24 pack, you got to keep up.
Yeah,
So,
man.
I think you were unofficially the third heartthrob.
I was the heavy set brother you guys wanted to acknowledge. I was the one that we had to go on Simon Dean's system or play by Buddy Rose's blow away diet.
Oh.
All right. Here's a question I ask all my guests when they come on. What got you hooked on the wonderful world of professional wrestling?
I was like 7 or 8 years old, and just WWF was running wild with Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, the LJN action figures. All the kids at school were talking about it, even though outside of school they didn't want to admit it. Yeah, I just started secretly, like, I was embarrassed to watch in front of my mom. So I would go and watch USA Network. My older cousins were like 8 or 9 years older. They would always, Saturday mornings, Saturday afternoons. So, I think it was the end when the Rock, the first album came out, The Land of 1,000 Dances, whatever that was, TNT Tuesday nights. And then when King Kong Bundy splashed Hogan and injured his ribs, that I cried. I cried because, you lived and died with your hero every match. So yeah, that's what got me hooked.
Was Hulk your guy growing up?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Hulk Hogan. And then I found the NWA. So obviously like Ric Flair and the Horsemen, because to a chubby fat kid, they were cool and you wanted to be like that. And then obviously as I got a little older, Ultimate Warrior, Sid, Sting, everybody wants to go back and say, oh, I love the Workers. I love, which you did. I love Ricky Steamboat, love Savage, love Tito Santana. But, it was Hogan that got me hooked. And then kind of flipped it, started liking heel Demolition when they beat Strikeforce. And then Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, DiBiase. I was Ted DiBiase for Halloween. One year, my mom made me, when I was in 6th grade, I think, my mom made me an outfit. And because those guys were cool. That's who you wanted to be. You're just a chubby little kid, stuck in left field. He's not that athletic at the time. And, those guys you want to be like that. So yeah, that's what got me hooked.
I was Alpha of the Wild Samoans one year. And I was also in high school. I want to say like either 16 or 17. I was a Road Warrior Animal.
Well, that's a badass. That's great.
Paint, everything. And walked around school like I was like jacked like them. Oh, it was the best. So how do you, now it's interesting because I didn't know this about you. You said you were a chubby kid. Welcome to my world. I remember you're always in shape. You're in better shape now. Like you're lean, but you were thicker. So like, how did this transformation, or when did this transformation happen?
So yeah, I was always shopping in the Husky aisle with those jeans and the pants and
Sears corduroys.
Yeah. And Playing tag at recess sucked because you were always it. Yeah, probably till about 7th grade, and then grew a little, but was still kind of scrawny. Was about 100 pounds, 5 feet. My first day of freshman year in high school, and loved basketball. Played basketball freshman and sophomore year, but it just, I wanted to wrestle. I said, why? People laughed at me. Hey, you're 100 pounds, you're 5 feet at the time. But I was like, it's on me. I don't have to rely on teammates. I don't have to remember plays or anything like that. I was just a stupid high school kid. You know, you don't know any better because
Right.
you're just a baby. So, I was never, being 5'10", you're never going to be 6'5". So I said, I'm going to try to get in the best shape as I can. I'm going to run. I'm going to lift. Started going to the gym with my friends. Was just always playing sports, but then just kind of focusing on, I knew my mom was a teacher, so I knew I was the worst student ever. And I'm a teacher now, go figure. But I knew that I had a short-term plan to look good, try to look good for the girls in high school, but then I had a long-term 6-year plan after high school to be in shape. I'm sorry, after college, because then I wanted to go into wrestling. And I knew in high school, I said, this is what I at least got to try it.
Nice. How do you get into wrestling?
Well, I took the 6-year plan in college, and
I was on the 5.
that's okay. No, I always heard of Killer Kowalski School. This was 2000, so we just gotten our first laptop as a family, desktop. So it was UPW in California, and then it was pretty much Kowalski's out here. So just kind of did some digging, there was no website back then.
Right.
So I had to kind of just looked around and found the number there, called, went down. They're like, why don't you come down first? But I'm like, listen, I got my 2,500 in my head. I'm like, listen, I'm joining either way. So drove down there 2 hours and started. And that was January 2001.
Nice. Loved Killer, man. He would always come to ECW shows.
Yeah.
Excellent trainer, and has produced a lot of great talents. Everybody who came out of there, the majority of people that I've dealt with over the years, all could work.
No, it was
old school training.
Yeah, he would sit there, but then he would be like, stop. And he would say, I learned this on Carpentier in Montreal in 53 or whatever. And yeah, it was when I got there, the first person I met walking up that staircase was Chris Nowinski. John Walters was there. 14-year-old Ken Doan would come on the weekends with his older brother. Wagner Brown, Aaron Stevens, later Damian Sandow. And then, yeah, that kind of kicked off a whole bunch of people from New England the next 20 years.
Yeah, man. I remember Paul used to always give Walter pay when he would come up to ECW.
Yep.
And he'd always try to use his guys, and he would get everybody in the ring beforehand. We used to do that. We were the first wrestling company to really put everybody in the ring beforehand, open tryouts.
Yeah.
But Killer would hold class, and this is 1996. I'm Tommy Dreamer, and I'm top guy, whatever. And Walter's like, get in here. And of course, yes, sir, I get in there. And he's teaching I call it the Triple H, the China over the top rope bump.
Backward.
Drill.
Oh, the Kowalski bump. Yeah.
And I'm like, I could do this, dude. I hit it as hard as I could, go over the top rope. And when I tell you, I thought I fractured my hip on that apron.
Oh, no.
And I was like, okay. And I had to work that night, and I was more pain from that one drill than friggin' my actual match.
3 months in, I took that and I thought I broke my rib. I couldn't breathe. It was I fracture, hairline fracture in my rib, but I was like, I had to take 6 weeks off, and I
Yeah.
was at least, and I was like, oh my God, all these thoughts go into your mind. Oh my God, is this for me? Like it was tough, but yeah, it was that bump, the Kowalski bump, we call it. So
Yep. The that first injury when you start wrestling, man, it's the scariest thing.
yeah,
And I remember mine was my back, and Damien Demento rammed me into the apron, and
yeah,
I really did hurt my lower back.
yeah,
And we were wrestling in a boxing ring. And when I tell you, like, then fear sets in of doing the same
yeah,
bump or same maneuver. And that's where you always like, and we'll go back to this, but like you're training guys, you have to break them of that fear and that bad habit, because everything that you do in wrestling is unnatural to your body. Like
yeah,
fall backwards without putting your hands down, fall forward without putting your hands down. That's not normal. But yet we do it thousands upon thousands of times.
yeah. I mean, it was very scary. I didn't know this was like my dream, but I'm like, geez, I don't know. I was like, I want to at least have one match, but
Yeah.
I was like, and just not to mention other things like, just like you said, bumps, and just you're used to being athletic in a certain way, playing other sports, and then you're doing all these unnatural things. And I had a little bit of amateur wrestling in high school, but I didn't have a pedigree to where it was, and I didn't even think like, hey, just this is all, you know, amateur judo. It's all the same
Yeah.
family. Just work it and just fall like you would,
Agreed. It's
judo
it's
or
it's that mental thing you
yeah,
gotta let go.
yeah.
So you're working indies. What is your path to the WWE? Because I didn't hire you, I
No.
inherited you.
Sorry.
Don't say sorry. We've been friends ever
Yeah,
since.
no, no, no.
And randomly, like of all the people that I actually hired, I probably talked to you more than anybody.
Wow. Well, we're in the fantasy
Oh,
league.
where I'm gonna get to your I'm gonna put you
Yeah,
over
yeah,
later. So
yeah, yeah. No, I started training. When I got hurt, I found out there was a guy 10 minutes from me that was training people. He ended up, Smart Mark Sterling was there, Roselli was training there. Um, Sasha Banks' husband, who's now the gear maker for WWE, he was training there. So we all had our first matches. We ended up having our first matches together. So there was like this little community of wrestlers that were going there, and I just started to set up rings, and then through there, just being in shape, just having gear, just showing up, saying hi, showing your face. Had my first match September 15th, 2001, right after 9/11, and then just started kind of finding my way around New England, setting up the rings. I was working as a substitute teacher, so I jet out of school on Fridays early, or sometimes call out, and just even wasn't even booked, just going with my friends who were booked to different
right.
shows in Maine and everywhere. And anyway, Dr. Tom did the first ever Dr. Tom camp from Mike Spada, and went to that. And then I did pretty much every Dr. Tom camp after that. And at that time, I started training with Steve Bradley. He had come back to the area. So I'd go up, I'd train I'd go to Chaotic, which was where Kowalski's went. I would go to Steve's. I would train near me. And then finally, Dr. Tom called me in July of 2004. Hey, come to Manchester and Providence for Raw and SmackDown, and had a match with John Walters, and Arn saw it, liked it. Well, actually, we worked out in the ring. Arn stopped it, liked me, like John, because he'd seen John before. This was my first time there. So he gets us a dark match. We have a dark match, and I get to the back, and he's sitting there in gorilla like this, and he puts his hand out like that arm fashion. Goes, congratulate, looks down, his glasses. Congratulations, might have just got yourself a job. And I'm like, okay, I popped one of my wrestling idols growing up here. This is okay. I pleased him. Got to the back, and John Laurinaitis said, hey, I want to see you. Brought me into a room with JR. Because I believe this was right when JR was transitioning. John
Right.
And said, hey, we want to offer you. Vince saw you on the monitor, and you come recommended by Arn, but Vince saw you. Vince doesn't walk by the monitor all the time, so we'd like to offer you a contract and go down to OVW. And I was unemployed at the time. I was a substitute teacher. It was the summer. I had to borrow money to get a new gear bag and buy some business casual clothes.
Right.
And then a month
Wow.
later, I showed up in OVW, and shortly after, I saw you at the Gold's Gym. You get the free membership from the Suburban Lodge at.
Yeah. If I could backtrack, that's an amazing story. A lot of guys get a bunch of looks before they get hired, and the other part of it now, you get a look, and then they'll bring you to the PC center. Well, that's really, really cool that happened for you. It's kind of an unheard tale.
It was
that it
too early.
happens.
It was too early. It was way too early for me because emotional. Like, I never moved away from home. I never lived
Right.
away from the area. You're in your mid-20s, and you're still like a baby. I mean, I grew up a mama's boy, and it was culture shock, especially, Louisville's not deep South, but it's different than the Northeast.
Oh, yeah.
I just wasn't, my career was kind of been backwards, because it's like I got to WWE first. I did all the Northeast indies from 2001 to 2004. So, but Japan, Europe, Ring of Honor, doing all traveling and learning these different pieces, that didn't happen till after WWE.
Right. Well, yeah, if I could go back, I remember, it's funny when you say about that Golds, because we'd all go there and then we'd go to practice. I then inherit OVW from Dr. Tom, and a shout out to Dr. Tom.
Yeah.
Because Dr. Tom invented the pro wrestling seminar.
Yep.
He was the first guy to ever do them. I see them all the time now. I see people who I'm like, who's this person doing a seminar? I don't even know who they are.
Right.
And yet they're doing a seminar.
And Dr. Tom got in there with everybody. He demonstrated the flip bumps. He locked up with you. That first seminar, we had Rob Echoes was there, Josh Daniels, myself, Romeo. There was a lot of guys from all over New York, the Northeast, were there. And he did everything in the ring with you. And I know he probably still does.
A lot.
I mean,
he still has his school, but man, he invented that. I always say Colt Cabana is the innovator of the Wrestler podcast, and Dr. Tom is the innovator of the Wrestler seminar. And it's brilliant because, I mean, like you said, even for your age, for my age, there was not a lot of information for how you get out. Now, like, I see him all the time. If you want to be a wrestler, like, as we're doing this, I'm doing a seminar on Friday, and I've hired people because they've taken great bumps. I've recommended people like, hey, you know who this person would be? Like, hey, there's this guy, we need extras in this area. Like, they're so good to attend because you never know how, you're going to connect and make those connections in the industry. Because again, like you said, you had to look up where a wrestling school was. Me, forget about it. It was even harder, but like, you make these early connections, or if you are in good shape and you impress. I mean, that I know for a fact. You're in good shape. Vince walked by the monitor and said, man, there's a guy who's in good shape. He's not a bad worker. Let's develop him. It's that simple. And like, that's how quickly that happens. And if you're not in that great shape, or, you could be a better worker, but not in good shape, let him like want it and be hungry for, it another time. So that's why they take multiple looks. So it's cool that you got that. And you said about the maturity factor. Now I'll tell you from my point of memorying you, when you called me up at the office to introduce yourself to me, when I already like had met you and you're like, I'm the guy who's hurt. And I was like, I know who you are, dude. And you're like, well, you always, because you can't spend as much time with everyone, but then we just had this,
Oh, no.
but introducing yourself to me as the guy who's always hurt popped me.
Oh, no.
And because you were hurt a lot of the time when you were down there.
I never, aside from that thing at Kowalski's, I'd never gotten injured. I popped my bursa sac like 3 times in my elbow. Then I something with I tore my hip muscle, and I'm sitting there in the suburban lodge. I'm going and watching practice. It was miserable, and I was the new guy until Chili Willie got there. And there were 20, 25 guys and girls under contract at the time.
Yep.
So it wasn't like it was a revolving door of people coming in. So I was just like, who's this clown? Like, why does this guy what's so special about him? Why is he here? So it was very tough. But yeah, that sounds like something I would do, introduce myself.
Seriously, that's how I remember it. I was like, man, I got to bring this story up when I talk to you. Ever have a friend that has a guy? Nobody can find something, but your friend has a guy? Well, I've got your guy for auto parts, and it's rockauto.com. They've been in business for 20 years, and while other businesses in the country might be raising prices or low on stock when it comes to auto parts, you've now got a guy. I'm telling you, rockauto.com has the auto parts you need in stock at reliably low prices. If you got a used car, it's probably appreciated in value. The car market is hot, which is why now is the time to keep your car well maintained. It feels good knowing you're driving a reliable car, and rockauto.com makes it easy with every part you need at low prices. So check out rockauto.com if you're looking for auto parts. Rock Auto is your guy, and let them know we sent you by. At checkout, yell at them. And I know about this from the House of Hardcore podcast. I'm only kidding. Kind of not. There's a box to put it in our show name. Once more, rockauto.com with all auto parts you need at amazing prices. Now let's get back to the show. So you're in developmental, and I remember now you're starting to make your strides. I also remember you had or it was either you or John that had a shoulder injury.
That was John.
Okay.
John, yeah.
So how do you and for those of you who don't know, if you could describe the developmental system back then, but when you're saying you're not used to it, you're literally bumping and practicing every day. You're getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
And there's tape study. It's so much different now. I don't know. I'm not part of the PC. Haven't never been. Love to go. But it's back then. I know you had they also had the amateur classes that Rip Rogers was helping out with. And then
Mondo did the beginner class,
Yep.
or contract class. So yeah, it was we had Lance for 2 weeks on, and then we got Bill DeMott when he first started there. My first week was when Bill was there, and that was hard training. I ended up loving, I'm not going to get into whatever,
Right.
I ended up loving Bill because once he knew he could go to war with you, or he could put his name on you, and he was cool. So and he was very supportive, and I know he supported a lot of my friends. So it would be 2 weeks with Lance, and then 1 week with Bill, and then sometimes if they weren't there, Jeter or Joey Mercury would run class. Rip did. God, I think they fired Rip before Lance got there, but he still did the dinner class at night. Mondo did the non-contract class in the morning. So you did that. Practice could be anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to 6 hours. You spent an 8-hour day there, because whether it was, we do a little mini shows or doing matches, or You know, there was something different. You were getting work in the ring. It doesn't mean you were bumping nonstop. Some practices were like that. Not many, just at the beginning, maybe for, just a little bit at the beginning
Right.
when I was there. But it was, Monday, Tuesday practice. Wednesday was TV night. During the day, Lance would bring Nemeth, Bobby, Boogeyman, newer guys and girls there that he was he could work with them. And then Thursday was, you would either have a practice or you'd have a light practice and do, just do matches. And then Jimmy would do pay-per-view with you. And that was a PhD in why you do everything you do, why I laid it out like this, why this time. It was booking, it was working 101.
Right.
And then you had usually two shows, Friday and Saturday or Saturday and Sunday. And you probably get a day off, but you were wrestling, when you hear Danny Davis or Jimmy talk about it now, it was every day you were doing something. It was like a true territory. And you were getting reps in, you were learning. And it was great. There was one ring. So the PC is like a college. You got people coming in and out. You might never see some people.
Right.
So some people are lifting, some people are with this coach, some people are with that coach. Everybody was around the ring, paying attention, or you were in the stands watching and digested all that feedback that every single person got. So you were learning in infinite ways. So
me personally, I loved OVW. I loved going there. I had a great time. It was my therapy to be away from the office because I was, I missed wrestling, even though I was so involved, but I didn't want to be in that position. I still
you would do matches. You would do matches there. Lance would.
I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you say it's funny, like it's like 20 to 25 people, I think tops was 30 that were hired, maybe 3 to 4 women at a clip. And it again, much different times, but it also was very, very in a bit of a family orientated, dysfunctional family, but everyone was cool. There wasn't a lot of drama. It was like, we're all starting out on the same field. We all want to get to the same place. And we're going to bond. Like I remember when there'd, be a pay-per-view on, everyone would get together at somebody's place and watch a pay-per-view together. It was like paid college.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone could work to some extent. You had Nemeth and Lashley were really the only ones that were being trained from the ground up. But, you had Nova there would pop in and out, but he was on the main roster at the time. But he would come in it, he was there and had been working 15 years or so already at that time. So everybody could work, everybody had been working, everybody loved wrestling that was there.
Now, how do you get called up, or you have success in OVW with Romeo Roselli as were you the Heartthrobs there?
We're the Heartbreakers.
That's right, the Heartbreakers.
Yeah.
And you have success there, which is cool. You guys always in shape, good workers. How do you get called up to the main roster?
We're just doing something completely different in OVW. John and I had trained together. I'd known John since before my first match. So we were tagging in the Northeast a lot. And then we brought the idea to Jimmy, and then he's like, Romeo's got him as a heel, promise you're going to be a baby face. Then he came to us one day and said, I got it. I've been wanting to do it for 20 years. It's going to be like new fabulous ones. I want you to get boas, red and white tights with lips and hearts on them. I'm going to call you the Heartbreakers. I'm going to put you in Mo Green because Mo Green wasn't doing anything at the time. So I was just like, I was watching Japanese. I was getting my Ring of Honor DVDs from Bill Brown Video or from RF Video or getting Japanese stuff. And then, John John was so comfortable with the gimmick, and it was so different for me. But we just did crazy stuff, and it got over. We're maybe the biggest baby faces there in just a couple months. But and we all said, hey, we love it down here. I loved it. I got to OVW and I couldn't stand it for 2 months. It was like, this is not what I envisioned. But now it was a complete 180. And I'm like, man, let's develop. Let's see where we can go with this. Maybe we can turn heel. I never really done tag team wrestling, the nuances of it. And they knew, let's keep them down here. 8, Lance said, Jimmy says, let's give them 8. These guys are young. They're in shape. They can work. They just need experience. Let's give them time to develop. And when you say that,
called up to the main roster.
Yeah, we're going to call you up, but you can't do anything that
got you to the dance.
Right. So you can't teach experience. We were prepared. We were always prepared. We knew we were going to get called up. You got us a match in Cincinnati, Valentine's Day that year. We worked with Hurricane and Rosie, and Ricky Steamboat kind of gave us the Iggy after that. He's like, hey, he goes, you're going to get called up, but you're going to be heels. So we kind of knew a couple months ahead of time that, all right, we gotta, so we were as prepared as we could be, but you can't teach experience, and we had no house shows. We debuted Madison Square Garden. You called us on a Friday. Your debut in Madison Square Garden. I went out and literally ran around the parking lot at the Suburban Lodge.
That's awesome.
And I don't know what your name's going to be, but it's not going to be the Heartbreakers. That's what you said. So, you just try to stay afloat when you're in there with, everybody there. You're Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair. Regal was working 20 years by that time. That was with our first match. Tajiri, probably 15 years. Everyone there was a man, was a seasoned veteran, and we were by far the youngest and the greenest. And so it was tough. We never, looking back on it, I think they just wanted like Hollywood blonde versions of us, like pretty boys, not so much doing the gimmick, but we didn't really get any guidance. So we did with what we knew. And, but you learn from that. And I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing, because it made you hungrier and it made you stronger. Yeah, it wasn't the WWE run that you wanted. But everything works out for a reason. And
absolutely.
I learned your acceleration on the main roster is, you learned a ton at OVW, but then getting in there, and we were doing house shows, all the house shows for 6 months. So you cannot not get better. And it was great. We get in there with Hurricane and Rosie, not call nothing but the finish, because we had our spots. You have your routines. Get in there with Cade and Murdoch. Music's coming on. Hey, what's the finish? Well, all right, we're gonna do this. Blah blah blah. So it was fun. It started to be fun. You're walking on eggshells for a while, but then it's like, fuck it. We're probably not. Sorry, I didn't know if you could swear.
No, you can do whatever you want.
Listen, we're here for a reason. We're behind the 8 ball already. We got nothing to lose, so let's just be ourselves and kind of take control, not be so passive. And you might have to butt some heads, calling matches or even in the ring, but it all worked out at the end. And
it's all about your journey, man, and where you are in your life.
Yes.
Because I remember the other day when I was talking to you, it's more so like, if you think about like the day you're released, it's like, oh, like, my world has just been rocked. I don't know what I'm going to do in my life. And it's so far removed from like, I have a family, I have a kid,
right.
like like those are like the real things that matter.
Right.
Um, and like you think about, like you said, when you were a kid, you're a kid, you don't realize it. With experience, with age, like you realize, like, man, there's going to be ups and downs in life. It's how you deal with them. And but as long as there's tomorrow, life is always about change. And
Yeah.
like your problems that you had, you said you experienced it. You hated OVW, never been away from your house, then you love OVW. And
Yeah.
it's just like it's like at the end of the day, man, hey, I'm happy. I have a beautiful family. Life is good. You
Yeah.
know?
No, it took it. All I wanted to do was just wrestle for a living. I didn't need to be a millionaire. I didn't need to, you know, be. Everybody says, "Oh, you should get out of the business if you don't want to be the
World
world
champion.
champion." And it's like, yeah, I would have loved to have a WrestleMania. I would have loved to be Intercontinental champion. But you know what? Like, I got to see the world on someone else's dime. I got to live and train in Japan. I got to work for, you know, do Ring of Honor, go to England, go to Europe, go to Puerto Rico, go to all these places. And all I wanted, because we felt we could never do right by the agents. And I was always very cool with Arn, but obviously that wasn't Arn's vision when he put his stamp of approval on
Right.
me. So I was always looking for that. All I want was that handshake and that respect. You come to the back and Vince gives you that nod, or you get the handshake from your agent, from the person you're working with, and that respect of your peers. That's it. That's it. And just not to have a real job. So it didn't have to be in WWE. Yeah, we wanted it there, but when you get released, it sucked and you cry. You think about what you could have done better, but at the same time, it's like, I got a clean slate now. Now let's contact this person. You know, it's on me now. And I just want to prove that I wasn't, I wasn't the shits, that I
Yeah.
could work to some capacity.
It's funny, like you say, from developmental, reminds me a lot of the NFL. You're playing in college, you're a star in college, then you come to the NFL, the game is faster, it's a whole different system. You have to learn on the fly, or else that system's just going to eat you up. And it doesn't mean you're not a good enough, you have to be in the right system.
Yeah.
There's also, like you said, experience and like having to deal with it on that level. It's hard. I mean, I went from ECW to WWE, and I was 8 years in on top in one company, and now I'm back on the bottom in another.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, wait, I'm having 6-minute matches that I have very little input or creativity in, when
Yeah.
I had all my creativity that I wanted in my, in this thing called ECW. So it is much different. And I say this to people in seminars when I do them. It's when you're following your dream and you've done it, like you said, you've traveled the world, you've wrestled for WWE, you want to open up that encyclopedia that I see it because I see you all the time, because it's the HeartThrobs, or
The heavenly bodies.
and Thomas, I'm Tommy Dreamer, you're Thomas Matera, and I always see it in there when people are flipping all the pages, the promise. So anyway, but like a lot of people never leave their home. They never leave their home state.
Yeah.
And like, or like you had aspirations to do something, and life gets in that way, or they just don't do. And I was like, you're already a step above people you went to high school with, people you went to grammar school with.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you actually pursued what you tried to do. And if you fail, okay, but at least you tried, because you don't want to have regrets. And like, I don't view like so many people. I mean, like I said, you had a run in WWE, you worked for WWE, you did all these things, and then afterwards, with what you learned there, you're still in the wrestling business
Still
today. You
still
like
learning.
you
Yeah.
I did some research on you, and I knew you went to Japan. I didn't know you were living there. I didn't know, you're tagging with Aki Bono, all this stuff that you're doing. And I'm just like, wow, like that's a cool life experience.
Yeah, no, like I said, my career was like in reverse. And um what is success? Back when we were trying to get signed, and when people were trying to get signed and go to OVW, it was like WWE and that's it. It's like,
Right.
oh God, I got to get to WWE. And so many people from that time, when they got released or they didn't make it, they just, they just left the face of the
Right.
wrestling universe. They just disappeared, or worse, and to me, it was just about, I just wanted to improve. I wanted to keep learning, and being able to go to Japan and train, by living at the dojo. Muda would walk in the morning and be like, oh, Thomas, and he'd be riding the bike in the gym. And it was great. It was awesome to be able to work there for 2 years and go and go and live there and see all people I knew from WWE, work with Aaron Aguilera, work with Rene Dupree, Jimmy Yang, Super Crazy, be a part of like the Super Juniors tournament there, work with Kaz Hayashi, train with Kaz because Kaz did most of the training, learn some, teamed with Masakatsu Funaki, not the Funaki from WWE, but the guy that, for people listening, the guy that with Minoru Suzuki helped create Pancrase.
Yeah.
And being able to like learn from him, and Minoru Suzuki was there, Kojima, Teo Kea, all the like Masafuchi, who I got to talk about just what a worker, he was in, I think, the first concession stand brawl.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
With Onita.
Yeah, I learned comedy in Japan, and then going and just starting to train along the way, help others and train, getting the confidence to say, okay, I think, maybe, I'm okay at this. I can help relay this information to others, what I've learned, and continue learning under Les Thatcher, and still doing seminars. Terry Taylor would come around when he was with TNA, and it was just want to learn. It wasn't being a mark or being like, it was, you want to learn from all these people, because that working, that territory style, those territory guys, they're 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there were few and far between. Now they're virtually non-existent. So, wrestling doesn't owe you anything. You can cry because you get released, or it sucks. But if you love wrestling, man, it doesn't matter if you're in front of 30 people or 10,000.
And there's more opportunity now as
Yeah.
opposed to when you did get released. There's more companies, there's more indies. The businesses, when you were released, the business was on a downslope, but
It was just,
the
it was
business
just
is on fire again.
Yeah, it was just the carny, quote unquote carny shows, or I love Tony Atlas, but Tony Atlas was like in the main event, and it wasn't work rate shows. It was,
Right.
And then there was Ring of Honor, and then there was a couple others.
But also they're not paying as much to, you got to hustle.
Right. You got to hustle, and you got to evolve, and you got to change. I knew I didn't want to do the heartthrob thing, and we ended up teaming up. We didn't do the gimmick, but no, we did it going back at Chikara, like 2000, because that was the place to do it. But yeah, you change and you evolved, and for 10 years, I was just the promise, just solid worker in tights and boots, and throwing different things at the wall, and just, I was just like, it was boring to be myself,
Well, the one thing I'll also put you over with is you are a fabulous, and as insane as I am, fantasy sports between football and baseball. You're always somebody that because we're in a lot of leagues together, but you're always somebody that I'm like, man, you're in the top echelon always. And I know you do that for fun. I know you've also done podcasts with it. and it's a side gig for yours, but you're great at it, man. You really do have a knack and a skill, even though I usually beat you.
Hey, I won
I know.
2021. I won your league, but then I thought starting pitchers were gold in that league,
Yeah.
and then I
And
didn't
I
check the
changed it.
settings. You changed the settings. And I texted Stryker. I'm like, "Hey, do these settings look different?"
Well, the biggest thing is like real baseball. You have to
Yeah,
have at least a complete game to do it. Cause I made two little tweaks. I don't know if I liked it. Don't know if I'm going to do it next year, but it still doesn't matter because I won it.
but a guy
I
like
told
him,
everyone I was making the changes, but you're really good at football. You're really good at baseball, and you're up to date. There was so many. You're that guy in every league that like I'll be like, oh man, I'm gonna go pick this person up, and then I'll go and I'll see where's that person. I'll see you have them. Like,
and I love to trade. I love
yeah,
to trade. I'm always constantly.
not the best offers, everybody. If you're in a league with him,
Oh, well,
to
likewise, but
benefit him, he's a shark. He's one of
it's
those
just a
guys.
start. It's
He's a
just a start.
shark.
But yeah, no, you were in my NL only league last year, and that was super deep. That was a little
Yeah.
too deep. But I love baseball is my thing. I play football. That's a little more, you can get lucky in the playoffs. But baseball, we do a points league, and then rotisserie. I do an AL only and an NL only. And I've been playing since 98,
Wow.
1998 was the first year I did it. I remember we used to get weekly stats
I was
delivered
just
to
say
us
papers. Yeah.
in Manila. Yeah, and you had to have a player go on the DL to drop them.
Wow.
So
Much
it
different
was
rotisserie leagues back in the day.
rotisserie. Yes, yeah.
So now fast forward today, because when I was thinking about who I wanted on, and I saw you and you got your own school now with Ken Doan, another guy that I've known forever, and to experience and passing your knowledge. So tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, it's through Beyond Wrestling, which any wrestling fan kind of, it's one of the better and more prominent independents out there. I started Beyond Wrestling is I wrestled as Thomas Santel the last 5 years, kind of a takeoff on George McFly, but pretty much like a retro grappler that grapples, wrestles, and with an entertaining twist to it. And Drew Cordero at Beyond, I was able, since 2019, I've worked for him. I've been a diehard Beyond guy. And then earlier in the year, he wanted to get something going with a school because he started Wrestling Open, which is a weekly live TV show on IWTV every Thursday. And it wasn't really the time with my son. My son was probably 6 months at the time, and just my wife and I went through some postpartum things, and yes, it's real and it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
But Ken called me. I was actually at a Beyond show, Wrestling Ray Jazz, and Ken called me, and we got to talking, and he said, I've been talking to Drew, and we're thinking about doing this thing. And in Worcester, I live in Worcester now because that's where my wife's from. Ken lives 15 minutes from me. We're both 15 minutes from here. Drew is awesome. Drew gave us both because we both worked for Beyond starting in 2019. And people are like, what? You're bringing in these WWE rejects and whatnot and blah, blah, blah. And now fast forward 3 years, and Drew revitalized us in this business, and it's the right time. It's too good not to do it, and to pass along what we've learned, all the things that I've talked about, all the different people that we learned from. Ken was in the ring with Ken Mondo Jeter, who has a school out in California, who we all keep in touch with. We're all in fantasy leagues or not. Um, Ken was in there with Triple H, with Shawn Michaels, with Ric Flair. There's very few people left that can say that. I'm
At a super early age, man.
at a super
He was
early
I
age.
believe at the time, he may have been the youngest hire. Uh,
He was 18 because
yeah,
we both came up in New England and right
yep,
when you graduated. Yeah. Um, but just that knowledge, taking that, and now Ken being back in the fold there, and seeing, what different promotions, different what they want for TV, what just both of us knowing kind of the lay of the land, and through Beyond Wrestling having, and just being on the indies and through Ring of Honor and whatnot, knowing so many people on the AEW roster, so many people on the WWE roster, knowing these guys and girls that want to get to that level. And it's it's the perfect time to um I don't want to, there's just a lot of, it seems like everyone has a wrestling school now. And
yeah. But it's also a place. I'll break your own eyes. I mean, like you said, everybody who knows what Beyond is, it's a quality
yeah,
company that working a lot and was giving opportunity to a lot of people. And like you said, the things that you wish you had when you were signed, like working in front of people, coming up on the indies, every time you work with someone who's the shits, it actually makes you better because you're
yeah,
trying to have a good match with somebody who's not as good, or
yeah.
mistakes that are made. And now you can help the next generation so they are prepared for when they do get that call and
But,
or they get that opportunity.
and yeah, everything is there in place with IWTV, with the Wrestling Open every
Yep.
Thursday. It's a TV format. The last two matches are maybe 8 to 10 minutes, but every match has a 10-minute time limit. It's usually like a 6-minute TV match. So you're getting prepared for there. With Ken and myself, you're going to learn how to work. You're going to learn how to work for the TV camera, to work those matches. But more importantly, you're going to learn, Dr. Tom used to say, wrestling's ice cream. Well, we're going to learn our basic vanilla first, and we're going to make it the best damn vanilla possible. And then once you learn that, kind of like in the New Japan dojo, you learn a hand, black
Yep.
tights, you do a Boston crab, you do a slam, a suplex, basics. Getting back to helping people learn how to work. Listen, the wrestling, you're not gonna there I understand. There's certain matches you have to get over, you have to crash and burn. You got to do what you need to sometimes to get noticed. And but coming out of wrestling school, you need to be able to protect yourself, bumping in every type of situation. That Kowalski bump in a match, if it's your chance, you can't get hurt on that. You need to protect yourself.
Right.
And you need to be able to work, because when you get that TV time cut, you need to think on the fly. And when I say working and calling it on the fly, that's if you go in there and I say, hey, you got 6 minutes, 8 minutes, this is the finish, go in there, tell a story. At the very least, it's average, it's a C minus. And that's your floor. That's your floor with two people that can work. Then when you start taking what you do, the 5 or 6 things that make you unique, and you add those in, and you know how to tell someone, stay here, move on this, register, sell, don't sell, watch the kick, turn, all those working aspects, and you add into whatever works for you, calling things or not.
Yep.
It's everything is there in place for guys and girls to get weekly TV time, to learn with myself, with Ken, the people on Wrestling Open. I've had so many people, so many local workers who I've worked with, who I've come up with, who I've helped train, say, hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to come and help out in any way I can. And I'm just really excited. Beyond Institute of Pro Wrestling. We're going to start it in January. And Beyond Wrestling at gmail.com is where you can reach out and inquire. And there's even if, say, being a wrestler isn't your thing, well, there are so many other things production-wise there that you could learn from IWTV. You could be a ref. You could learn video production.
Yeah.
You could learn formatting and whatnot. And with
You're
myself,
still doing something that you love
you're
being a part of it.
You're being a part of it. You're in the game and you're doing something you love. And you never know where it's going to take you. So,
and like I said earlier about the like seminars and stuff, Ken, a direct link to the WWE. He can see somebody like, oh God, this person is perfect, or hey, we need this. If you think about who's he going to go to first, his people.
Yeah.
And it's all about the connections and the people you meet along the way. How do people find you on socials?
At Retro Grappler on Twitter. I don't go on social media much, but I do promote now the school and stuff I have on there. My Thomas Santel Twitter at Retro Grappler. And then if you want to inquire about the school, it is beyondwrestling@gmail.com.
I think I got to go and change your thing because I may be following an old. Yeah, man, I am following an older you. Have I been following your hack forever?
Oh, I have a Promise Twitter too.
Yeah, that's what I'm following.
Okay, at Retro Grappler.
All right, I'll go back to that one. I'm going to delete the other one. Well, dude, it was so nice catching up with you. And anytime, and also if you want to come on Busted Open eventually once your school's open, that'll be a great way to promote what you got going on. And I'm happy you're still in the game, and I'm happy you and I talk. And from that, I'm the injured guy to, like I said, I'd probably talk to you more about stupid things because that's what wrestlers do. We enjoy each other's company and have a lot of the same likes.
You were texting me when I was in the hospital, my son was born, my wife was in there 2 weeks. You were telling me how, you and your girls were in there for 16, 70 days, I think in the 16 or 17.
Yep.
And, asking me back in that football league and whatnot. Listen, it helps. I remember that stuff. And, there's a reason we've kept in touch since 2004. So, and I'm coming for revenge next year in that Yahoo. I'm way better than finishing sixth.
Yeah, as long as we all beat Stryker, that's all that matters.
Yes.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time. And again, I'm happy for you and happy to plug whatever you got and retweet whatever you need because you and Ken are both my friends. So that's it. That's this week's episode of the House of Hardcore podcast.